Hello, my name is Carolyn Shoenberger, and I'm the Executive Director of the Shoenberger Public Interest Law Foundation. And the Shoenberger Public Interest Law Foundation assists people either pro bono or at low cost who have immigration issues, mostly family-based issues, and also people who are adults and have disabilities and need guardians, or to assist people who need guardians. And you can reach me if you need to consult with me at Shoenberger at, Carolyn at Shoenbergerfoundation.org. So if you would like information, I would be happy to supply it. También yo puedo hablar español, je parle français. So if you need someone who speaks Spanish, you need someone who speaks French, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at Caroline at Shoenbergerfoundation.org. So again, welcome everyone to Immigration Issues. And we're living in very interesting times, to say the least. Many of us are overjoyed at the results of the election. And there's a big question mark, but we're very hopeful about what is yet to come. Others may not be as joyous. Again, what makes our country great is the fact that we can all have different opinions and be able to express them, hopefully without fear of any kind of repression or harm. So today we have a lot of information, and I want to stress that, again, we have a question mark, so we can give you information on the past. We can suggest to you what may happen in the future, but we are not able to tell you for sure, give you advice. I am very honored to have a wonderful person with us today as our guest. Alex George is an associate with the McEntee Law Group, and I have to mention, Fiona McEntee was a student of mine, and she has done fabulously well, and she is wonderful at media. She's a great lawyer, and what she has put together as far as a law firm and a law practice is just truly remarkable. So we're happy to have Alex, who's a graduate from Chicago-Kent College of Law and Practice of Immigration. And Alex and I are members of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Alex is also a co-chair of the Media Committee for the American Immigration Lawyers Association and on the committee of Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. And I do want to put in a little plug. Chicago Volunteer Legal Services is absolutely fantastic. They do all kinds of wonderful work, not only in the immigration area, which we're going to talk about, but also in the area of guardianships, family law. They have all kinds of wonderful workshops. They really do a spectacular job. So big shout out to Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. Welcome, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Caroline. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, you're part of this wonderful law firm, and you're also active in the American Immigration Lawyers Association. What do we want to say about American Immigration Lawyers Association, also known as AILA? What would we say? AILA is a group of lawyers who practice immigration law. And in addition to providing resources, what else does AILA do?
Yeah, so AILA is kind of, call me a little biased, but kind of the gold standard for immigration law and advocacy. So on top of providing access to pro bono legal services, and it's not just CVLS, it's also, there's a military assistance program, and there's also a legislative advocacy arm of AILA that essentially brings federal lawsuits on behalf of immigrants who are impacted by policy changes. And it's not just kind of a group for immigration attorneys, it's a group for immigrant advocacy.
And that is fabulous. And also they help us become better lawyers. There are lots of information out there. Let's talk a little bit about Chicago Volunteer Legal Services and what AILA in partnership with Chicago Volunteer Legal Services does. They have a intake desk that does once a month, is that correct?
Yes. And that's for their immigration clinic. We'll focus on that. But if you go to cvls.org, they can help with a myriad of immigration and other legal issues. You can find a clinic near you.
Also, there are phone numbers you can call for Chicago Volunteer Legal Services, but the best strategy is to go to their website, cvls.org. Again, there's also an immigration hotline that is 312-332-8816. I'm going to repeat that in English, Spanish, and then French. 312-332-8816. 312 332 88 16. C'est en français. 312-332-8816. So again, you can call the number, and usually there are people who can help you in the main languages that our population speaks in the city of Chicago. So the CVLS clinic, when does that take place? And well, now everything takes place using Zoom, but how can people go and ask for advice besides calling? Where do they go? What do they do?
So right now, because of the pandemic, everything is happening remotely. So your best shot at connecting with CVLS and having a meeting with an attorney is to either call the number or log on to the website. Right now, it's by appointment only.
Okay, and then after you make an appointment, then an AILA attorney returns the call. How does that work?
Yeah, so a representative of CVLS will return your call to connect you with an AILA attorney to set an appointment. The best way to be prepared for that appointment is to have all of your immigration documents on hand, even to scan them forward before the appointment if you're able. And know that everything that you tell CVLS is completely confidential. It really helps the attorney to know the whole story up front so we can advise you fully.
I think that's great advice, because one of the worst things you can do with any lawyer, but particularly an immigration lawyer, is think that something doesn't matter. Oh, there's a little detail, or you've done something stupid, which we all have. We've all done something stupid, but you don't tell your lawyer. So the fact that it's confidential, please take advantage of the fact that unless you threaten to kill someone or hurt someone, a lawyer can lose their license if they breach confidentiality.
Right.
So again, it's really important. If you have an immigration question, you can work with the American Immigration Lawyers Association and Chicago Volunteer Legal Services by going online to cvls.org and selecting the immigration clinic, or by calling 312-332-8816. So to change the topic just a little bit, a lot of people are asking what's going to happen with DACA. And DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. A little bit of history, but before I ask Alex to give a little history, the case is being argued in the Supreme Court next week based on the current president's attempt to end the program. So Alex, let's first talk about what is DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Right. So DACA was a program enacted under the Obama administration in 2012. The idea is that it was done by executive order, and it was designed to grant work authorization, deferred action, so that's temporary relief from immigration proceedings, essentially allowing a very specific group of immigrants who arrived undocumented as children to remain in the US, work with authorization, and possibly pursue other forms of relief that might be available to them.
So there were a lot of rules regarding this. You couldn't have a criminal record, bad to have DUIs even, and I would hope that no one does. And then we had a new president, and in 2017, sort of the roof caved in. The Trump administration attempted to end DACA. There were lawsuits, and the oral arguments and everything were deferred until after the election, which took place last week. And next week, I believe, is when the DACA case is going to be heard. Again, one of the wonderful things about DACA was, as you mentioned, Alex, that you can get work authorization and be, unless you did something stupid, pretty much safe from being deported. But the negative was it could be terminated.
Right.
And it was, or at least the attempt was there. We'll see what happens next week. What do you think is going to happen under President-elect Biden?
That's a big question mark too. If you look at the Biden campaign website, you'll see that restoring DACA and potentially providing protection for DACA recipient families is a top priority for them and on the table. But there are certain priorities that they may need to prioritize over upholding or restoring DACA. Obviously, President Biden has been handed quite a cluster of issues that he's going to need to address. But, you know, the Biden campaign has been consistent from the outset about restoring DACA. And we're hopeful, but we just don't know right now.
We don't know. So someone who already has DACA, the big question that I get is, if I already have DACA, do I renew? What would you respond to that?
Yeah, the answer is definitely renew. Part of the reason we would advise this is because this is your best shot at maintaining the status that you've had. And, you know, trying to renew if you let it lapse is more complicated. The important thing too, there's an important change here, at least under the current guidelines, is that when you renew your DACA this time, historically, it would have been good for 2 years. And now it's only valid for a year at a time until SCOTUS or President Biden says otherwise. So it's very important to maintain your DACA if you already have it.
Yes, and they're, unlike some other programs in the past, you have to pay the fees in order to renew, and it's not cheap. I don't know what the latest fee is, but another question that I get is, now I'm eligible for DACA. Do I apply as a new person, a new applicant? What would you advise for that?
So it's kind of a two-pronged question. For new, you know, potentially qualified DACA recipients, the answer to can I apply is no for right now. What's been happening is first-time DACA applicants have been having their packets rejected, meaning that it was returned to them without cashing the filing fee, but it was just returned to them in full, with USCIS saying, we will not review this. There's
That's actually good.
Yes.
Because they could keep it, cash the check, and then deny you, and then they have you in a database. So that's right. One good thing that they're doing right now.
Yes, they won't, as far as we know, that data is not stored, and you don't have a denial on record that you would have to disclose going forward, because that could be a bigger problem than just having the packet rejected.
So you want to renew, and you did something stupid. You got a DUI in Illinois. You got a sentence of supervision. Mm-hmm. In supervision in Illinois, if the term of supervision, which could be up to 2 years, if you complete it, it's not a conviction. Is it a conviction for DACA?
The answer is kind of maybe. We would want an immigration lawyer to sit down with you and look at all the facts to make sure the actual sentence you received, it's about the possible sentence for the offense. DUIs are considered a significant misdemeanor under DACA. And so honestly, it comes down to the specifics of your case. We'd need to evaluate you individually.
Okay, well, again, Illinois law applies to Illinois residents. Immigration is federal law. So what necessarily will be the case if you were applying for a benefit package in Illinois may be different. And you brought up a really great topic, and that is there are some wonderful community-based organizations out there with accredited lay representatives. However, when it comes to giving advice under criminal law, it is best to talk with an attorney. Again, and I know a lot of community-based organizations want to talk with you. But since there's only one penalty if you mess up your case, if you have any kind of criminal activity, whether it's a DUI or shoplifting, you're best off talking to an attorney. And there are attorneys out there, every income level, including the American Immigration Lawyers Association partnership with Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. So again, if you don't have a conviction that would knock you out of the box, you can't apply for the first time. And that's controversial too, because it seemed that under one of the court orders, you should be able to, but I guess immigration decided not to. So again, one of the things that people talk about, not necessarily with DACA, and that is the relationship in dealing with marijuana. Now that marijuana is not only legal in Illinois, but as of last week in a host of other states. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean, Alex?
Unless you're a US citizen, this really doesn't change anything for you. My blanket advice to anybody in any kind of immigration status other than a US citizen is to avoid cannabis products at all costs, and not just products. We've seen cases where people are kind of affiliated with cannabis products in an ancillary way. So, they work for a dispensary, or maybe they visit a dispensary in a state where it's legal, or even working in, like cannabis dispensary real estate can be a problem. The other big problem we see is social media. If there's evidence of use, the definition of kind of being affiliated with cannabis use is so broad under federal immigration law that I'm really, really conservative with how I advise people on this. And it's just to avoid it.
I think that's great. Don't even agree to be a transporter. If you drive for Uber Eats or you drive for DoorDash, don't drive anything that has any kind of cannabis, any marijuana in it. Avoid it. And at some point this will be clarified, but at the moment, the answer just don't, which Alex said is the best answer. So again, when we talk about immigration and the fact that generally there's one penalty, we like to tell people, give them advice, sort of preparation advice, know your rights. What are some of the things that you might want to tell people as far as part of the Know Your Rights program?
Right. So, I'm primarily thinking about DACA recipients when I say this, but a lot of this applies to anybody in any status. So, knowing that as long as you're physically present in the United States, you have certain due process rights. You can invoke the right to remain silent. You can invoke the right to not sign anything until you speak to an attorney. You just have to be really clear about the fact that, say explicitly, I am choosing to remain silent. I want to speak to my attorney.
When I started as a new lawyer, and I'm not going to even tell you when, we were handing out cards that said, "Tiene la derecha de decir nada." You have the right to say nothing.
Right. Exactly.
And that's true today. You have the right to say nothing. I tell people don't sign anything. But in preparation for being at the wrong place at the wrong time, besides telling people not to say anything, talk to a lawyer, how else would you prepare should the roof cave in? What are some of the advice that you would give?
Right. So this is a situation where, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. When we advise people on this, we're thinking about the whole person, thinking about all aspects of their life. So, for a lot of people who have children, guardianship is a major consideration. Caroline has more experience with this than I do, but there are kind of different avenues for emergency or short-term guardianship plans out there, and there are pros and cons to both. There are systems that don't require, a court order, quite as much vetting, which saves you on kind of time and costs, but can also have some unintended consequences.
I'm going to pick up on that. There is a short-term guardianship. Normally you go to court for guardianship and frequently the court appoints an attorney to be the guardian ad litem to investigate the case. Short-term guardianships are for basically a year. It can be renewed for another year, and they don't require going to court. However, so you save on money, you save on time. You can specify when you want it to start. Should I get detained? You can specify when you want it to end. So long as you're within the time limit, you can say when I decide to end it. However, you have to make sure that the person who's going to be the guardian is not a child molester, does not have a criminal conviction because you want to take care of your children. And the other very major problem is that, again, it's not recognized by everyone because it's not from a judge. So if there is a problem, again, it's a way of protecting yourself. It's not perfect. What are some of the other things, Alex, that can be done for sort of a just in case something happens situation?
Yes. So I found out about this relatively recently, and maybe this is something more for your smartphone users, but there is an app out there called Notifica.us that's powered by a group called United We Dream. And what that does is that allows you to essentially program a safety plan into your phone and program it to go to people you trust. So if you are out in public and you think you're about to be detained, you can hit that app and it will notify the people you trust of your last location and that you might be having an interaction with immigration enforcement. And then it wipes that data for your privacy. So there are also kind of more analog versions of emergency plans you can have, making sure that your immigration documents are in a safe place and that somebody you know and trust knows where they are and can access them in case, they need to call an attorney on your behalf. So either way, it's, making sure there are people who you know and trust who, know how to help you and to have that information available to those people in advance.
We recommend to families that they get all important documents in one place and everyone knows where they are, even things like where the kids go to school, who their teachers are, doctors, things like that, that in the event of an emergency, it's all in one place and you have access to it. We were talking right before the show started about the lack of privacy. I'm going to hand up my cell phone. Is there anything I can do to make sure that any picture I take or posting, if I delete it, can anyone find it?
There's nothing you can do to fully delete the things you put on the internet from the internet. There are all kinds of archiving mechanisms, both through the social media platform and through this fun thing called the Wayback Machine. Once you put it online, it's out there forever. And once it's on either your phone or your device, let's say, for example, you're flying into a port of entry from outside the US and you come in, they can search your devices, and they do. And if you try to scrub it, they also have forensic technology that can pull deleted files back. So the best defense is to not post it in the first place.
I think that I'm amazed at the things that people post online. But again, if you are undocumented or if there's something that can hurt you, don't post it. And if you have posted it, one of the experts who used to come to a digital marketing class that I taught would say, if you have something online, put a lot of other things online and maybe it'll get lost. Talking about classes, there are possibilities of scholarships for people who are undocumented to go to schools. And you have indicated you're aware of some information out there that can help people.
Yeah, so specifically for the state of Illinois, undocumented students can get in-state tuition, they can get financial aid. And I say this because these things I'm going to list off are not the default in all states. In the state of Illinois, you can get a driver's license. You can also get a professional license. So that's like a CDL or a cosmetology license, or even, medical professionals. These are possible for you if you're undocumented in Illinois.
I'm going to put in a pitch for City Colleges of Chicago. If you graduated Chicago Public Schools and you were in the top part of your class, your tuition is free.
Mhm.
And you can go there, you can get certified, you can start your career as an accountant, as a certified medical assistant, get a couple of years if you want to become a teacher. So again, ccc.edu is something you might want to look into. So Alex, I greatly appreciate you sharing all of this information. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we can share with anyone?
Yeah, I would plug two things here. One, we talk about caring for the whole person. This is a very intense time to be an immigrant. It's a very intense time to be undocumented. And so when it comes to taking care of the whole person, we got to worry about mental health too. So I'm going to do a little plug here for homeishere.us. They have a bunch of resources called UndocuHealth. And that's about, kind of coping with this in-between limbo time. And my other plug again, because, this is what I'm here for, would be for AILA CVLS. A lot of times if you're undocumented, odds are pretty good that you may have a form of relief that you just don't know about because you haven't been screened. Or, maybe you've got one form of relief in mind and there's an alternative that may be better. So that's why I'd recommend reaching out to AILA CVLS to talk to somebody like Caroline or like me, an attorney who can assess you as a whole person and figure out what the best path forward is for you.
Well, I think great advice. And again, I'm going to second the notion, contacting cvls.org, not only with immigration issues, but if you have a parent and you need a guardianship or a will, or if there's a family issue, CVLS is great. And the partnership with the American Immigration Lawyers Association is just really gold standard. So again, thank you. Thank you, Alex. I want to thank everyone who is watching or has watched us today on behalf also of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and also on behalf of Shoenberger Public Interest Law Foundation. Thank you very much. Hope to see you in the future. Thank you.